The drama surrounding the Stafford trade to the Raiders has taken on another twist. Until yesterday, the news was that after Tom Brady's meeting with Matthew Stafford, things were moving forward, and both the Raiders and Stafford were coming to an agreement. Raiders fans were enjoying this development, but today's twist left everyone shocked. Now, reports suggest that Stafford has settled matters with the Rams and will play the upcoming season with them. To be honest, this move is surprising and for some, a bit disappointing. Stafford seemed like a player who could have offered an immediate impact to any team looking to contend right away. Now, a lot of people are wondering what's next for the Raiders. I'll break down the latest around Stafford staying in LA and what it means for the Raiders moving forward. There's been plenty of speculation, and I'll also touch on the so-called Plan B option now that Stafford is off the table. What's up, buddies? Welcome back. If you are new here, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We cover all AFC West news here on this channel. First, let's address how this all unfolded. Jordan Schultz was among the first to report on this situation, and Ian Rappaport later confirmed it, which all but solidified the news. Stafford and the Rams are finalizing an agreement to keep him in Los Angeles. Despite some friction in their relationship and strong interest from teams like the Raiders and Giants, both sides managed to work things out. Interestingly, Stafford is reportedly taking less money to stay with the Rams. His decision seems rooted in family considerations, as he and his team felt it didn't make sense to uproot everyone. From Stafford's perspective, staying in Los Angeles also presents the best chance to win in the near future. Now, what's your reaction to Stafford staying with the Rams? If you could sum it up in one word, what would it be? Drop your thoughts below. This situation feels eerily similar to what happened with Ben Johnson and the Bears. It makes you wonder, are teams using the Raiders or even their reporters to create buzz and drive up interest elsewhere? It's frustrating, no doubt. But for the Raiders, there's no time to sit around feeling sorry. They have to move forward and focus on finding their franchise quarterback, and that's exactly what needs to happen next. So let's look at what's next. The Plan B option. Diana Rossini reported earlier that if the Raiders miss out on Stafford, they're unlikely to make a big financial commitment to another veteran quarterback this offseason. According to her reports, some members of the Raiders' offensive staff lean toward bringing in a proven veteran instead of gambling on a rookie quarterback. The 2025 draft class is not considered deep at quarterback, and there's a real chance the top prospects will be gone by the time the Raiders are on the clock. If it were up to me, I'd say trade up for Cam Ward. Yes, it would require moving up in the draft, but in my view, there isn't another quarterback in this year's class who's ready to start in year one. Plus, if spending is a concern, Ward might be a smarter investment compared to going after an expensive free agent quarterback. The Raiders need to act decisively, and whether it's through the draft or free agency, their choice at quarterback will shape the future of this franchise. I believe the earlier report about the Raiders being all in on Matthew Stafford might have been more about sending a message to Stafford and his team than a concrete plan. It seemed like an effort to show their full attention and commitment. As for Diana Rossini's statement that the Raiders wouldn't make a significant financial commitment to another veteran quarterback, I'm not completely sold on that being set in stone. I'm not suggesting her report was inaccurate, just that it might have reflected the Raiders' stance while Stafford was still an option. Now that it's confirmed Stafford is staying with the Rams, everything changes. The Raiders need to reevaluate their plans and put all their options back on the table. While they may exercise caution before handing out a massive payday, I don't think it's fair to assume their approach is locked in just yet. Missing out on Stafford stings, no doubt about it. Missing out on Ben Johnson was tough too. But what stands out to me is how this Raiders coaching staff rebounded after Johnson slipped through their fingers. If they can show that same resilience here, I'll remain confident in this organization. Despite the disappointment, I still believe this team has been making moves the right way. Now, let's get into Plan B for the Raiders. The first option is to evaluate the current quarterbacks on the roster. Right now, that includes Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew, and Carter Bradley. But let's be real. After everything we've discussed this offseason, it's clear that none of these players are viewed as viable starting options for the Raiders. Minshew is likely to be released this offseason with a post-June 1st designation, so his time is essentially up. As for O'Connell, while the Raiders might like his potential, no one in the organization currently sees him as a starting caliber quarterback. This leaves a glaring need for an addition to the quarterback room. While the initial reports suggested the Raiders might avoid a big spending move for a quarterback, it's clear they still need to bring someone in this offseason. The search isn't over, and the focus remains on finding the right fit to lead this team. The big question is whether the next quarterback will be a starter or not. What's clear is that no one currently on this Raiders roster is positioned to start for the team heading into 2025. That means looking at other options, and one of those could be pursuing a trade for a veteran quarterback. Now, if the reports are accurate and the Raiders feel more confident in relying on a veteran rather than rolling the dice on a young rookie quarterback, that narrows the field a bit. Let's consider some of the veteran options. Kirk Cousins comes to mind, but he's simply too expensive to trade for right now. If he were to be released by Atlanta, maybe the conversation could change, but the Falcons have indicated at the Combine that their plan is to hold on to him. What about Geno Smith? While he's an interesting option, the price tag likely makes him a long shot. If the Raiders are unwilling to commit big money to anyone not named Matthew Stafford, trading for Smith and then giving him a new contract feels like a stretch financially. Then there's Aaron Rodgers. His situation is a bit of a wild card. If he were to take a cheaper deal after being released by the Jets, maybe the Raiders could explore that route. However, recent speculation has linked Rodgers to the New York Giants. That connection has picked up significant traction in the last few hours, likely fueled by the Giants reacting to news of Stafford staying with the Rams. Based on that, Rodgers seems more likely to land with the Giants than the Raiders. For a younger option, J.J. McCarthy is an intriguing name. I've spoken with a source close to the Minnesota Vikings, and there's uncertainty about what they'll do. If they franchise tag Sam Darnold, McCarthy could become a trade target for the Raiders. On the other hand, if Minnesota doesn't tag Darnold, the Vikings are expected to stick with McCarthy, making him unavailable. Now, let's shift the focus to Plan B in NFL free agency. This remains one of the most likely routes for the Raiders, and there are plenty of names worth discussing. We'll break down some of those options next. The first name to consider is Sam Darnold. If the Raiders don't want to spend big, Darnold becomes an intriguing option. Among quarterbacks likely to hit free agency, Darnold seems poised to earn the most on the open market, especially now that Matthew Stafford is staying with the Rams. Unlike the trade scenarios for other quarterbacks mentioned earlier, Darnold's availability in free agency makes him a viable candidate. Initially, before this report surfaced, it seemed like the Raiders would turn their attention to Darnold, or even consider someone like Russell Wilson. However, Wilson appears to be too expensive. Additionally, reports from a few weeks back, including one from Jay Glazer, stated that Wilson wouldn't be heading to the Raiders. Since then, rumors connecting Wilson to Las Vegas have completely died down. Looking at potential Plan B options, Justin Fields stands out. Fields is likely the most affordable, high-upside quarterback on the open market who could step in as a starter. He's still young and brings a dynamic skill set. Chip Kelly could be the perfect offensive coordinator to maximize Fields' potential. If the Raiders want to focus on a run-heavy offense, pairing Fields with a draft pick like running back Ashton Genty could be a smart move. Johnny was even seen talking with Pete Carroll today about mastering the art of being a great running back, which highlights his potential fit in a system centered on the ground game. When considering Diana Rossini's report that the Raiders aren't willing to spend big but still want a veteran quarterback, Fields feels like the ideal target. Another name worth mentioning, though further down the list, is Zach Wilson. Wilson wouldn't be brought in as a starter, but as a developmental piece to add competition in the quarterback room. This makes Wilson more of a Plan C option. There is legitimate interest in Wilson from Las Vegas, but his role would be to compete with Aiden O'Connell rather than take the reins as the starter. If the Raiders were to sign Wilson, I wouldn't see an issue with that move. Letting him compete with O'Connell could help elevate the overall quarterback room. It's not an ideal scenario for some fans, but it might be worth exploring as part of a broader plan to rebuild the position. Of course, even if the Raiders draft another quarterback, whether it's Shedder Sanders, Jackson Dart, Will Howard, or Jalen Milroe, none of those rookies are expected to start immediately. That's simply not the plan. The organization seems focused on letting a young quarterback sit and develop for at least a year. This is where it all feels a bit frustrating. With Stafford off the table, the Raiders' Plan B seems to boil down to three key options: Sam Darnold, Justin Fields, or trading up for Cam Ward. So, guys, what do you think? What is left for the Raiders? And which quarterback could land Las Vegas? Share your thoughts in the comment section.